The galaxy had long whispered legends of the infamous death worlds, hostile planets where only the most savage creatures survived, war-torn worlds of fire and radiation, ice giants where oceans boiled under crushing gravity, swamps thick with venom and nightmares. But when the Galactic Council first set foot on a little blue planet called Earth, they laughed. Their sensors dismissed it as Category 4, moderately hazardous. Certainly not a true death world. They had no idea what they were dealing with. The Galactic Council had encountered death worlds before, planets so hostile that even the most resilient species barely managed to survive. Places where acid rained from the sky, where gravity could crush a battleship, where the very air was poison. When Earth was discovered, it barely registered on their threat scale, a Category 4, moderately hazardous, a place with shifting weather patterns, a few dangerous predators, and some biological oddities. Nothing worth fearing. The Zalthari research team arrived, expecting a routine survey. They were a species of delicate, translucent scalas, adapted to the calm, controlled environments of their homeworld. Accompanying them were their custodians, towering insectoids bred for labor, their exoskeletons thick as armor plating. Both species were confident in their abilities. Their landing site was a lush, green expanse teeming with life. Instruments hummed as they recorded temperature, air composition, and soil density. Readings fluctuated wildly, but the team attributed it to minor errors. Their biggest concern seemed to be the persistent hum in the air, a droning vibration that surrounded them from the moment they set foot outside. Then the first attack came. It was not from some massive predator or camouflaged hunter, but from an enemy so small their scanners barely registered it. An airborne swarm of insects. They moved in unison, relentless, slipping through protective gaps in armor and attacking exposed flesh. Some injected venom, triggering painful inflammation. Others simply bit, consuming flesh with an insatiable hunger. The custodians, built to withstand blunt trauma, were helpless against the thousands of tiny creatures burrowing into their joints and sensory organs. The Zalthari, sensitive to even minor environmental shifts, collapsed in agony, their bodies reacting violently to the toxins. As they scrambled back to the ship, more creatures emerged. Bloodthirsty parasites clung to their suits, microscopic bacteria attacked their immune systems, and even the plants joined in. Thorned vines latched onto limbs, their barbs coated in neurotoxins. Spores filled the air, triggering violent convulsions in those who inhaled them. Even the trees seemed to conspire against them. Massive wooden spears launched like missiles when high-speed winds tore through the canopy. By the time they reached their ship, nearly a third of the team was incapacitated. The custodians had to carry their Zalthari masters, their chitin pitted with wounds, their confidence shattered. As the engines roared to life, lifting them away from the green nightmare below, none of them spoke. The official report was vague. Earth is strange. The unspoken truth was far worse. Earth had noticed them, and it had not been kind. The first report on Earth had been vague, a perplexing account of aggressive wildlife, hyper-adaptive plants, and an ecosystem that reacted as if it were defending itself. The Galactic Council dismissed the Zalthari's findings as exaggerated, the ramblings of a species ill-suited for fieldwork. They needed a second opinion, one from a race that understood danger. The Tavor Dominion, an empire built on conquest, answered the call. Their warriors, tall and armored in natural plating, had spent generations hunting the galaxy's most dangerous creatures. Their mission was clear: assess Earth's true threat level by locating and studying its apex predators. Armed with advanced weaponry and centuries of hunting experience, they descended onto Earth with confidence. Their scanners identified a range of potential targets: massive reptiles lurking in swamps, feline stalkers with unnatural speed, and serpents wielding venom potent enough to bring down creatures 10 times their size. The Tavor tracked and observed, expecting to find creatures as disciplined and specialized as the apex predators of other death worlds. Instead, they found chaos. Earth's predators were not like those of other worlds. They did not dominate through sheer strength alone. Instead, they competed endlessly, locked in an eternal struggle against both prey and each other. No single species ruled. Every niche was contested. Every advantage met with an equally dangerous countermeasure. The great cats had speed, but their prey had endurance. The venomous serpents struck swiftly, but even their fangs were not enough to guarantee a kill. The massive crocodiles lurking in the rivers should have been perfect apex predators, yet they too were vulnerable, hunted, outmatched, and sometimes even killed by their own kind. The Tavor were unimpressed. True death worlds bred creatures that ruled undisputed. On Earth, dominance was temporary, survival a constant battle. It was a planet of endless war, but no clear victor. They were ready to conclude their report. Then they found the humans. At first they mistook them for prey. Hairless, soft-skinned, physically weak compared to the creatures around them. But something was different. These creatures did not flee from predators. They hunted them. Not for survival, not for food, but for sport. They stalked lions, subdued bears, and wrestled apex predators into submission. Even the creatures they tamed, their so-called pets, were descended from killers. What disturbed the Tavor most was the humans' adaptability. Unlike any species they had encountered, humans thrived in every environment. Deserts, tundras, mountains, and deep oceans. There was nowhere they had not conquered. They built weapons, set traps, and fought in ways no other species did. They did not accept the natural order. They rewrote it. The Tavor returned to their ships, shaken. Their report was blunt. Earth's predators are formidable, humans are worse. The Tavor had studied countless predators across the stars, creatures of immense power, speed, and intelligence, but no species had ever unsettled them quite like humans. The Galactic Council reviewed the report with skepticism. Humans were weak by nearly every biological metric. They lacked natural armor, venom, or enhanced senses. They were slower than many of their own prey and physically inferior to the apex hunters of other worlds. And yet, they dominated their planet. The Council needed answers. If humans were not the strongest, fastest, or deadliest creatures on Earth, what made them the apex species? To understand, they examined human history, and what they discovered left them deeply disturbed. Most apex predators in the galaxy evolved to fit a stable niche, their hunting methods refined over millennia, but humans had no singular strategy. They were not creatures of routine, bound by instinct. They were creatures of adaptation. When faced with a stronger enemy, they became smarter. When confronted with an obstacle, they built tools to overcome it. When they could not outrun a threat, they set traps. No other species had mastered the art of changing the rules the way humans did. Their bodies, frail as they seemed, concealed horrifying resilience. Humans could survive wounds that would kill most creatures. They functioned despite broken bones, blood loss, and missing limbs. They endured conditions that should have been fatal: starvation, dehydration, exposure to extreme cold or heat. Through sheer willpower, their immune systems adapted to new diseases, their bodies hardened under repeated stress. But what truly terrified the Council was their psychology. Predators in the galaxy killed out of necessity. They hunted only when hungry, fought only when threatened. Humans, on the other hand, sought battle even when they had no need for it. They waged war on each other, refining the art of destruction, not just for survival, but for dominance. They built weapons far beyond what was necessary to kill their prey. They engineered poisons, explosives, and machines of war capable of erasing entire cities in an instant. And they did not fear death. The Council observed footage of human soldiers charging into battle despite overwhelming odds. They watched humans throw themselves into burning wreckage to save their own, fight on with grievous injuries, and even laugh in the face of certain doom. No other species displayed such reckless determination. The final conclusion was undeniable. Humans were not apex predators because of their strength. They were not even predators in the traditional sense. They were something far worse. They were conquerors. The Galactic Council could not accept the findings. The idea that a Category 4 world had produced a species capable of rivaling the great empires of the stars was absurd. Humans were dangerous, yes, but only in the way that all apex species were. Their weapons were impressive, their adaptability remarkable, but they were still bound by biology, still limited by the same fundamental weaknesses that all organic life shared. The Council reasoned that humans were simply a product of their chaotic world. Perhaps their violent tendencies were a response to their planet's instability, a survival mechanism that would be tamed by the structure of interstellar civilization. If they truly were as dangerous as the report suggested, they needed to be controlled. A demonstration was ordered. A small invasion force, nothing overwhelming, just enough to display superior technology, was dispatched to Earth. Their goal was not extermination, nor full-scale conquest. It was a show of force, a calculated display of power to ensure humanity understood its place in the galactic order. A warning. The fleets arrived, their warships descending into Earth's atmosphere with the confidence of a civilization that had conquered dozens of worlds before. Shields strong enough to deflect railgun fire, energy weapons capable of melting through reinforced steel, and soldiers clad in armor that made them impervious to primitive ballistics. It should have been over before it began. It lasted 2 days. The first mistake was underestimating Earth's response time. Unlike other species that required centralized command structures, humanity's military forces operated independently, adapting to threats as they appeared. Before the invaders could fully deploy, fighter jets scrambled into the skies, not to challenge the warships directly, but to disrupt their landing zones. Satellite networks hijacked enemy communications, turning their own technology against them. The second mistake was assuming humanity would fight conventionally. The invaders had anticipated direct battles, organized resistance, and attempt to meet them in the field. Instead, their ground forces found themselves ambushed at every turn. Roads collapsed beneath their vehicles, bridges detonated as they crossed, supply chains were cut with surgical precision, weapons of unexpected ingenuity turned their own advantages against them. Chemical warfare, electromagnetic pulses, drone swarms, and primitive but devastating explosives. The third mistake was assuming humans valued survival over victory. They did not. They fought with a ruthlessness that defied reason, detonating their own buildings to trap invaders, turning entire cities into battlegrounds. Civilians did not run, they fought. By the time the retreat order was given, the once mighty invasion force had been reduced to scattered remnants. The Council had sent a message of dominance. Humanity had answered with a lesson in war. The Galactic Council had never encountered a failure of this scale. A force meant to subjugate Earth had been shattered in mere days, not by overwhelming firepower, but by something far more unsettling: human ingenuity. The survivors of the invasion returned not as victors, but as broken remnants, carrying tales of impossible resistance. The Council analyzed every battle, every engagement, desperate to understand how a supposedly inferior species had repelled a force armed with superior technology. They found no single answer, no singular advantage that had tipped the scales. Instead, they found something far worse: adaptation. Humanity had never fought with overwhelming force. Instead, they had learned at an unnatural speed, identifying weaknesses in their enemy strategy within hours of first contact. They hacked into alien communications, disrupted targeting systems, and repurposed enemy weapons. Where other species would have panicked, humans experimented. They tested, failed, and refined their methods in real time, turning every setback into a new advantage. The Council had expected conventional resistance. Instead, they had faced an opponent that did not fight wars. It perfected them. More troubling still was the behavior of Earth civilians. Most species, when faced with an invading force, surrendered or scattered in terror. Humanity did neither. It fought as a single organism, not just soldiers but everyone. Farmers turned fields into mine-laden death traps. Engineers repurposed industrial machinery into weapons of war. Scientists worked around the clock, crafting new countermeasures as battles unfolded. Even Earth's geography had become a weapon. Cities were turned into labyrinthine war zones. Harsh environments, Arctic tundras, sweltering deserts, dense jungles, became natural fortresses. No matter where the invaders landed, they found themselves trapped in a battlefield designed to kill them. The Council reviewed the final battle logs, searching for a pattern. What they found instead was something far more terrifying. Humans were enjoying themselves. Combat footage captured enemy transmissions, laughter, soldiers cracking jokes under heavy fire, pilots singing as they dodged energy blasts, civilians cheering as enemy warships were torn from the sky. War was not just survival to them, it was a challenge, and they had won. The Council convened in a panic. They had wanted to tame humanity, to fold them into the galactic order before their primitive species could become a threat. But it was too late. Humanity had not only survived, they had learned from the experience. They had salvaged alien technology, reverse-engineered weapons, and studied their enemies' tactics. The war had been a warning, not for humanity, for the rest of the galaxy. The Galactic Council had made a mistake, one so profound that it could never be undone. Humanity had not just survived their invasion, they had grown from it. What was meant to be a display of dominance had instead become a lesson in alien warfare for the most adaptive species the galaxy had ever seen. Whispers spread among the stars, rippling through every empire, federation, and dominion. The humans had done the impossible. They had fought against superior technology and not only endured but thrived. Now, every species that had once dismissed them as insignificant began to ask the same question: what happens when humans go on the offensive? Panic took root. Diplomats from every corner of the galaxy scrambled to assess the damage. Could the humans be reasoned with? Could they be convinced to forget this war and move on? Bribes, treaties, and peace offerings flooded toward Earth in desperate attempts to soothe the very species that had been marked for subjugation just weeks before. But humanity was not responding. The Council had expected retaliation, an immediate counterattack, demands for reparations, threats of planetary annihilation. That was how most species reacted when wronged. But humanity did not follow the rules of war. They did not seek vengeance the way others did. That, more than anything, terrified the galaxy. Instead, humanity was watching. Surveillance drones were spotted in the outer colonies. Space stations reported unidentified probes scanning their defenses. Even the most secure data networks found themselves compromised, sensitive information leaking into the void without a trace of who had taken it. Humanity was not launching an attack. It was studying. Every military fleet, every planetary defense system, every political structure, humanity was gathering information, analyzing weaknesses, cataloging threats. The galaxy had thought it could classify Earth as a Category 4 world, barely worth considering. Now, humanity was returning the favor. It was deciding which species were worth considering. In desperation, the Council issued a directive. All species were to avoid human space at all costs. No ships were to enter their solar system. No diplomatic envoys were to make contact. The hope was simple. If humanity was left alone, perhaps it would remain contained. Perhaps it would choose to stay within its own borders. But deep down, they knew better. Humanity had already mastered Earth. It had turned the deadliest planet in its system into its home, shaping it to its will. That was what humanity did. It expanded, it conquered, and now it had the galaxy in its sights. The Galactic Council's desperate attempts to contain humanity were futile. Avoiding them was not a solution, it was a delay. The moment the first warships had descended upon Earth, the fate of the galaxy had been sealed. Humanity had learned too much, too quickly. The old balance of power was already crumbling. The other species had always seen themselves as the rulers of the cosmos. The great empires had risen and fallen, waging wars, forging alliances, believing they understood the true nature of strength. But none of them had ever faced a species like humanity before. One that did not just endure suffering but grew from it. One that did not just survive war but perfected it. At first it seemed humanity had accepted the Council's silent truce. They did not strike back. No fleets launched in retaliation. No armies marched upon alien soil. The galaxy breathed a sigh of relief, thinking perhaps, just perhaps, the humans had no interest in vengeance. Then the disappearances began. A patrol ship vanished near a distant trade route. A research station lost contact with its homeworld. A mercenary group once hired to raid weaker colonies simply ceased to exist. No wreckage, no distress signals, only silence. The Council scrambled to investigate, but the pattern was undeniable. Humanity was still watching, still learning. They had never needed to retaliate with brute force. Instead, they hunted the way Earth's predators did, with patience, with precision, striking from the shadows. And then, for the first time in recorded history, a human message was transmitted to the entire galactic network. It was not a declaration of war. It was not a demand for surrender. It was something far worse. It was laughter. A recording, barely a few seconds long, human voices laughing, amused as if they had heard the universe's greatest joke. It echoed through every star system, every outpost, every empire. It was not threatening. It was not hostile. It was mocking. And the message that followed chilled the galaxy to its core. You call this a death world? That's adorable. In that moment, the truth became undeniable. The galaxy had spent eons fearing the wrong things. It had feared high-gravity worlds, toxic atmospheres, and monstrous predators. It had built its definitions of a death world around planets that crushed and consumed life. But Earth was not a death world because of its environment. Earth was a death world because it had created humans. And now humans were coming, not in conquest, not in war, but in amusement. And there was nothing the galaxy could do to stop them. Science fiction is the gateway to the future. If you enjoyed this journey, like, subscribe, and join us for the next adventure. Until then, keep your eyes on the stars.